Hello everyone and welcome back to Fluency Rocks. I'm Carolina, your teacher from Colombia, and today we are diving into the basics of the passive voice in Spanish. Since this topic is very long and jam-packed with details, today we'll discuss the passive voice using the verb ser, to be, the passive voice with the pronoun se, and the impersonal se. We are also going to cover when it's appropriate to use each of these forms. If you've been watching my videos, you know how important it is for me to put everything in context. So, as usual, I've prepared a dialogue and some homework to help you practice what you learn. So, without further ado, let's jump right into our topic. What's the passive voice? The passive voice occurs when the object of an active sentence becomes the subject. Let's compare. Contrataron a Sara. They hired Sara. Active. In this case, the focus is on the action of hiring Sara. Sara fue contratada. Sara was hired. Passive. In this sentence, the focus is on Sara since it's more relevant to indicate who was hired. In most cases, the passive voice creates impersonal sentences. However, if the agent of the action is added, the sentence is not impersonal anymore. Let's analyze this example. Sara fue contratada por la gerente. Sara was hired by the manager. This sentence is passive but no longer impersonal since the author of the action, la gerente, is mentioned in the sentence. In impersonal sentences, the doer of the action is either unknown, irrelevant, or we just don't want to mention it. For example, el informe fue presentado a tiempo. The report was submitted on time. We don't know by whom. Another example would be, en Ecuador se usa el maní para muchos platos. In Ecuador, peanuts are used for many dishes. In this case, the identity of who exactly uses peanuts for Ecuadorian dishes is unknown, and it's also not relevant. Passive voice with ser. There are different types of impersonal sentences in Spanish, and it can be tricky to decide which one to use. The passive voice with ser is less common in everyday conversation, and it's more frequently seen in written materials such as news and articles. The passive voice with ser is created by combining the correct tense and form of the verb ser, to be, with the past participle, which matches the subject's number and gender. This construction is used to emphasize the action itself or the result of the action without necessarily mentioning the agent, the doer of the action. The agent may be known or unknown, but it's not the focus of the sentence. Let's see some examples. Firmaron los documentos. They signed the documents. Active. Los documentos fueron firmados. The documents were signed. Passive. El autor editó el libro. The author edited the book. Active. El libro fue editado por el autor. The book was edited by the author. Passive. Now, there are a few important things we must consider when it comes to the passive voice with ser. The first thing I want to mention is that in English, the indirect object can become the subject of the verb in a passive sentence. For instance, he was sent a gift card becomes a gift card was sent to him, and I was granted the residence permit becomes the residence permit was granted to me. This is a unique feature of English that doesn't exist in Spanish. We can't translate that kind of sentences into Spanish. When the agent is not mentioned in the sentence, there's no difference between the passive voice with ser and the passive voice with se. For example, los documentos fueron destruidos. Se destruyeron los documentos. Both sentences mean the documents were destroyed. However, the first sentence is clear and straightforward, while the second one could potentially be misunderstood as the documents destroyed themselves. It's important to note that there can be a nuanced difference between these constructions, therefore it's crucial to pay close attention to the context. The passive voice using ser is commonly seen with the preterite, future, perfect and pluperfect tenses, as well as with infinitives. It's less common with the imperfect, present and continuous tenses. For instance, Carmen fue premiada ayer is a commonly way to write Carmen was awarded yesterday. However, Carmen es premiada con frecuencia, Carmen is frequently awarded, is less common, although it's becoming more popular in the media. When we want to mention the agent in the sentence, the preposition por should be used with the passive with ser, and it shouldn't be used with the passive with se, since it's not considered correct. Let's illustrate this. We should say, la democracia fue inventada por los antiguos griegos. Democracy was invented by the ancient Greeks. On the other hand, if we say, la democracia se inventó por los griegos, it would be a mistake. This is not considered correct in Spanish. Wondering how you can contribute to this channel and my work? It's quite straightforward. You can show your support by buying me a coffee. This small act of kindness energizes my creative spirit and enables me to produce more quality videos just for you. Remember to subscribe and hit the bell icon to keep up with the fantastic content I created especially for you. Your support means the world to me. Now, let's get back to our topic. The passive voice with se, also known in Spanish as la pasiva refleja, is used when the subject is not known, when it's not relevant, or when we want to omit it. This construction is found only with transitive verbs in the third person, singular or plural. In case you don't know, transitive verbs are those verbs that take an object, which means they include the receiver of the action in the sentence. So, when we use the passive voice with se, the verb is conjugated depending on the object, whether it's singular or plural. An additional aspect to keep in mind about the passive voice with se is that it's typically employed only with non-living nouns and pronouns. This is done to prevent confusion with other meanings of se. By the way, if you want to know more about the uses of se, I highly recommend you to watch the video I made about it. It's jam-packed with useful information about this pronoun. The link is here. Now, let's see some examples about the passive voice with se. La torta se hornea a temperatura media. The cake is baked at medium temperature. Se imprimieron muchos libros este mes. Many books were printed this month. Se resolvió el problema con los proveedores. The problem with the suppliers was resolved. Las papas se hierven en agua con sal. The potatoes are boiled in salted water. The passive voice with se usually has the same meaning as the passive voice with ser when the agent is not added in the sentence, but it's much more frequently used in regular speech. It's more impersonal than the passive voice with ser, and as I mentioned before, it's never followed by por, since we shouldn't use it when the agent of the action appears in the sentence. For example, the sentence gunpowder was created by the Chinese should never be translated as la pólvora se creó por los chinos, since it's not correct in Spanish. The correct translation is using the passive voice with ser. La pólvora fue creada por los chinos. The impersonal se. We already know that the passive voice with se is an impersonal sentence because even though we know there's someone behind the action, the subject is not specified in the sentence for different reasons. However, the impersonal se is different from the passive voice with se because in this case, there's no subject performing the action. It's always in the third person singular and it's used with intransitive verbs, those verbs that don't require an object. and it can also be used with objectless transitive verbs. Let's analyze the following examples. En esta ciudad se vive bien. One lives well in this city. Here we are using vivir, which is an intransitive verb. En este país se baila mucho. People dance a lot in this country. We are using bailar here, which is a transitive verb without an object in this sentence because we are not mentioning the type of music people dance. In summary, we must pay close attention to the context and the rules in order to decide if we should use the passive voice with ser or with se, because the translation of both constructions into English will always require the verb to be. That's why the context is crucial. Okay, take a look at this. Here's a dialogue that illustrates how we use the passive voice in daily Spanish. Let's dive into it. Un vistazo a las noticias del día. Buenas noches a todos. Hoy tenemos varias noticias importantes que presentar. Así es, empezamos con una noticia de gran impacto. 2 billones de dólares fueron enviados como ayuda a los damnificados de la reciente catástrofe natural. En noticias de educación, se ha anunciado que muchos colegios públicos serán construidos en las zonas más necesitadas del país. Y en el sector de salud, el hospital público más grande del país fue inaugurado esta mañana. Un gran avance para nuestro sistema de salud. En política, aún no se ha aprobado la ley para el porte legal de armas. Además, varias leyes están siendo revisadas por el Congreso. Y hablando de política, en las próximas horas se confirmarán los resultados de la consulta popular en Ecuador. Estaremos atentos a los resultados. A nivel internacional, se aprobó un paquete de ayuda militar de 60.800 millones de dólares para Ucrania. Este paquete de ayuda será firmado por el presidente de los Estados Unidos. Sin embargo, aún se sigue esperando más ayuda del occidente. Recordemos que en ese país se sufre mucho debido al conflicto en curso. Eso es todo por ahora. Manténganse sintonizados para más actualizaciones. Hasta la próxima. Hasta la próxima. Here you go. That was a brief dialogue to demonstrate the use of the passive voice in Spanish in practical situations. For your homework, write a sentence in the comments using the passive voice with ser or se. I'll be more than happy to help refine and improve your sentences. Let's see what creative ideas you come up with. Remember to like this video, spread the word among your friends, subscribe, and click the bell icon to stay updated with the new content. Also, feel free to leave your video suggestions in the comments. I love hearing from you and exploring the subjects you are interested in. If you are keen on enhancing your Spanish skills, don't miss out on my video titled 6 Uses of Se in Spanish with a story. It's packed with handy advice to help you understand and incorporate this pronoun in your daily dialogues. Click here to watch it and keep rocking your language learning goals.